Tell me, have you ever felt haunted by something no one else could see? Not by the judgment of others, but by the quiet, relentless voice inside your own head. That voice we call conscience. That invisible weight we call guilt. Dostoevsky once revealed that the true punishment of man is not delivered by the world outside, but by the shadows of his own mind. And today, we are going to walk straight into that shadow. Together, we'll uncover the secret of guilt and conscience, and why facing it is the only way to understand the dark side of the human soul. So if you are drawn to psychology, philosophy, and the hidden depths of the human mind, this is your place. Subscribe now and join me on this journey, because what you're about to discover may change the way you see yourself forever. Let me ask you something. How many times have you gone to bed at night knowing that no one else would ever discover what you did, yet still you couldn't find peace? No punishment, no accuser, number, witness, and still your mind refused to let you go. That's the power of conscience. It's like an invisible judge, one that never sleeps, one that follows you everywhere. Dostoevsky believed that the greatest torment is not handed down by society or by law. It is the quiet, merciless punishment we give ourselves. Think about it. Have you ever created punishments in your own head, even when no one else had condemned you? Have you ever carried a secret that burned heavier in silence than it ever would in confession? This is the paradox of guilt. It doesn't need witnesses to destroy you. It only needs your own mind, turning endlessly against itself. Guilt is not just a feeling. It is a prison built inside the mind. The walls, they are made of silence. The chains, forged from thoughts you cannot escape. And the more you try to ignore them, the tighter they close in. Dostoevsky shows us this through Raskolnikov in Crime and Punishment. It wasn't the police who destroyed him. It wasn't society's judgment. It was the unbearable weight of his own conscience. Now imagine yourself for a moment. What would hurt you more, being condemned by the world, or being condemned by your own inner voice? When guilt becomes a prison, it doesn't need guards, it doesn't need bars. It feeds on your silence. It grows every time you try to bury it. And little by little, it takes away your freedom, not outside, but inside. Most of us grow up believing that conscience is our guide, our moral compass, the voice that tells us what is right and what is wrong. We are taught to trust it, to follow it, to obey it. But what if I told you conscience also has a dark side? Think about it. Has your conscience ever whispered not wisdom, but cruelty? Has it ever told you that you don't deserve happiness, that you must suffer endlessly for a mistake you cannot change? Dostoevsky understood this paradox. He knew that conscience is not always pure. It can become a tyrant, a voice that doesn't forgive, doesn't release, doesn't allow redemption. Instead of being a teacher, it becomes a jailer. Instead of guiding you, it chains you to shame. And here is the frightening truth. We can justify almost anything to silence it. Human beings, when cornered by guilt, invent reasons, excuses, even philosophies, to make the unbearable weight lighter. In Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov convinces himself he has the right to kill. He calls it justice, he calls it logic, but deep inside, it's a desperate attempt to silence his conscience. Now pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what have you justified in silence? Which actions have you explained away, not because they were right, but because you couldn't stand the voice inside your own head? This is the dark side of conscience. It doesn't always lead us toward truth. Sometimes it drives us into deeper lies, only so we can breathe again. And yet the relief never lasts. The shadow always returns, whispering, accusing, gnawing at the edges of your peace. So the real question is this: do you truly trust your conscience? Or is it possible that the voice inside you is not justice at all, but fear wearing the mask of morality? There is a secret about guilt and conscience that few dare to speak aloud. We are taught to see guilt only as punishment, a moral reaction to something we did wrong. But Dostoevsky understood that guilt is more than morality. Guilt is also a mirror, and what it reflects is often what we fear the most: our hidden desires, our shame, our unspoken truth. Think about the times you felt guilty. Was it always because you hurt someone else? Or was it sometimes because you saw a part of yourself you didn't want to admit existed? Guilt is like a shadow that points to what you are trying hardest to hide. And here lies the dangerous secret. Sometimes we cling to guilt because it feels safer than admitting the truth. Imagine a person who carries guilt for years, not because the act itself was unforgivable, but because letting go would force them to face who they really are. The guilt becomes a shield, a smokescreen, a way of avoiding the terrifying freedom of self-knowledge. Dostoevsky wrote about this hidden battle. He showed us that guilt does not only say, "You have done wrong." Sometimes it whispers, "You are not who you pretend to be." And that is why it is so painful. Because it does not only judge our actions, it unmasks our identity. Now let me ask you, if your guilt could speak honestly, what secret would it reveal about you? Is it telling you that you crossed a line? Or is it revealing a truth about your nature that you don't want to face? Here's the secret no one tells you. Guilt is not only about the past. It is about who you are becoming. And until you have the courage to confront the shadow it points toward, it will follow you everywhere. Dostoevsky believed that true freedom is born not by escaping guilt, but by facing it directly. And the moment you stop running, the moment you dare to look guilt in the eyes, you discover something shocking. The shadow was never your enemy. It was your reflection, begging to be seen. So how do we deal with guilt? How do we face a conscience that sometimes teaches, sometimes condemns, and sometimes deceives? The answer is not what most people want to hear. You cannot simply silence it, and you cannot erase it. The only way forward is through. Dostoevsky believed that the human being finds true liberation not by escaping the dark side of the mind, but by confronting it. When Raskolnikov finally confesses, it is not the punishment of the law that frees him. It is the act of facing his own conscience. He discovers that the weight becomes lighter not when you hide from guilt, but when you accept its message and step into truth. But here's the subtle difference. Guilt can either enslave you or guide you. The key is asking yourself, is this voice helping me grow, or is it keeping me chained? If it teaches, listen. If it only punishes, question it. Imagine standing before your own shadow. At first it feels terrifying, dark, overwhelming, inescapable. But the moment you stop running, you realize something extraordinary. The shadow is shaped exactly like you. It is not a monster outside of you. It is a part of you waiting to be understood. And here is the invitation. The next time you hear the voice of guilt, don't try to bury it. Don't drown it in distractions or silence it with excuses. Instead, ask, what truth is this pointing me toward? What part of myself have I refused to acknowledge? Because when you dare to have that dialogue, guilt transforms. It no longer chains you to the past. It becomes a compass pointing you toward the person you are meant to become. Dostoevsky reminds us that the greatest mystery is not the world outside, but the soul within. And the soul is revealed not in moments of pride, but in the quiet, painful confrontation with our conscience. So the real choice is yours. Will you keep running from your shadow, or will you have the courage to walk into the darkness and discover the light that has been hidden there all along?